Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Rohn. What a pleasure it is for me to come and visit with you for just a few minutes here today. Tell you briefly a little bit about my story and share some ideas that might be beneficial. I've lectured in some high school classrooms in California and Arizona and some universities and colleges, Pepperdine University, San Diego State, Arizona State University. And so I've had a chance to talk to kids that are interested in themselves and interested in their future, interested in America, interested in what they can do with their lives, and listening to stories that might be beneficial. And I don't have a chance to, visit all of the schools and universities around the world, so this is a great chance for me by video to have a chance to tell you my story. Just briefly, let me tell you my story. I grew up in Idaho, farm country. My father still lives on the old homestead where I grew up, southwestern Idaho. He'll be 91 his next birthday, and I'm very proud of him. I went to high school. I graduated. I went to college 1 year. Halfway through my second year, I decided I was smart enough, so I quit. One of my major mistakes. I should have stayed in school. But I thought, heck, I'm smart enough to get a job. And back then I thought, that was it. If you're smart enough to get a job, what else would you need? Found out later, a big mistake. But anyway, I quit school at age 19, went to work. A little while later, persuaded a beautiful young lady to marry me with a lot of fancy promises. And fortunately for me, we got married. A little while later, I started my family. And I'm out there working hard, doing the best I thought I could. But year by year, I kept falling a little further behind, buying a little more than I could conveniently pay for on time. And the creditors are finally starting to call saying, hey, you told us the check was in the mail. I'm not feeling at all good about that. About age 25, I've got pennies in my pocket, I've got nothing in the bank, and way behind on my big mouth promises to my family, and wondering what could I do to make my life better. I was willing to work hard. That was not my problem. But I just wasn't making the progress I wanted to make. And then good fortune came my way. Sometimes it's difficult to describe good fortune, why something remarkable happens to you at a particular time. One of my friends says, well, hey, things don't just happen. Things happen just. And maybe that's it, I don't know. But my good fortune was I had a chance to meet a very wealthy man. His name was Mr. Schoaf, Mr. Earl Schoaf. A friend of mine had gone to work for him, and he started telling me about this man. He said, you got to meet this man. He's rich, but he's easy to talk to, and he's got a remarkable philosophy of life. And he kept going on, and I thought, well, I've got to meet this man. So shortly after that, I had a chance to meet this Mr. Schoaf, and I was impressed. He was rich. He was easy to talk to. Within a few minutes, I was dazzled. And I said to myself, I would give anything if I could be like that, rich and easy to talk to. What would it take? And then I thought, if I could just get around somebody like him, and if he would teach me and coach me, I would do it all. And that was my good fortune. A few months later, this wealthy man, Mr. Schoaf, hired me and gave me a job, and I went to work for him, and I spent the next 5 years in his employ. And then, unfortunately, at age 49, he died. But I got to spend 5 years with this remarkable man, his last 5 years of his life, and the first 5 years of my new life. And my dream came true during that 5-year period. This man took the time to teach me and coach me. He taught me the books to read. He taught me the disciplines, and he taught me the skills. And he taught me the changes to make in my language and personality. And the things he shared with me during that 5 years changed my whole life, changed my income, changed my bank account, changed my future. I've never been the same. By the time I was 31 years old, I was a millionaire. So he taught me economics as well. So how lucky can you get to meet the right person at the right time who takes the time to share with you ideas that can change your life? A lot of rich people, right, don't take the time, but he did, and he also had the ability. Some people want to share their experiences, but they don't quite know how to say it, but he had it all, and he used language that I could understand, and those ideas greatly affected my life. I wish he was still alive today. If he was, I'd be calling him today one more time, thanking him for the time he spent with me sharing his life and his experiences that so dramatically affected my life. Then, how I really came to be invited to speak to you today. 30-plus years ago, I was living in Beverly Hills, California. And a friend of mine one day said, "Jim, you've got to come and tell your story to my service club." He belonged to the Rotary Club. And he said, "I know your story. Idaho farm boy makes it to Beverly Hills." But he said, "I know my club members would love to hear your story. Would you come and at our breakfast meeting and tell your story?" And I said, "Okay." So I arranged a little talk, went and shared my story that morning, and guess what? They liked it. And my phone rang. Another club called and said, "Would you come and tell us that story?" My phone rings. Another club calls, said, "We've heard about your story. We have a luncheon meeting. Would you come share your story?" First thing I know, I'm spending a little piece of my time giving these breakfast talks and luncheon talks. And then one day, a man who heard my talk about 3 times said, "Would you come and talk to my management and salespeople?" He said, "I've got this little company going, and he said, if you would spend some time talking with my management and salespeople, I'd be happy to pay you." And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be something? Tell my story and my experiences and get paid? He said, "I'd be happy to." Little did I know, that was the beginning of a whole new, brand new adventure for me in sharing my story in speeches and talks and seminars and lectures. And now this business, become one of my most flourishing enterprises, takes me around the world. I went to many countries just this year, had my largest audience early this year in Spain, 12,000 people, 10 different languages being translated at the same time, the whole audience with the earphones on. It's interesting when you lecture with multi-languages. You know, when you hit the punchline, you know, the Spanish laugh first, and then the French get it, and then finally the Italians get it, and last the Germans finally get it. And then I say, "Hey, the Germans finally got it. I guess we can continue." You know, some languages take longer to translate than other languages. But what an exciting adventure for me. I was in Israel this year. I lectured in France, my first trip to Prague, Czechoslovakia, Lisbon, Portugal. Last year I was in London lecturing. Happened to be there the same night Pavarotti was singing in London. So, a big dilemma for the people in London. Shall we go see Jim Rohn, or shall we go listen to Pavarotti? Well, I must admit he had more people than I did, like 150,000 more. He did a free concert in Hyde Park, and they expected 250,000, but only 150,000 showed up because it rained. And they all got soaked from Prince Charles on down, but they sat in the rain and listened to Pavarotti. I would have been happy that evening, right, to cancel my seminar and go sit in the rain and listen to Pavarotti. Anyway, he and I have agreed now not to appear in the same city on the same day anymore. Not really, but how exciting for me to be able to travel all around the world and share my story. And then especially to have this chance today to come and visit with you. And when I get a chance to speak at a high school class or a university class, I'm always excited about it. I'm limited in time, so I wanted to use this way to come and share my story with you and some ideas that might be helpful in your career for the future, in your now busy life as a student, and then wherever you find yourself in the years to come. Some of the things I'm going to share with you, I want you to remember for a long, long time, because the ideas I want to translate for you drastically affected my life. And if I can share now and affect your life, and you write me a letter or tell me in person someday, "Mr. Rohn, I listened to your video and I watched it carefully, and sure enough, some of the ideas that you shared greatly affected me, and here's what's happened to my bank account, here's what happened to me in school, here's what's happening to my future," that'll give me great, great satisfaction. So the man who shared with me ideas that changed my life, I want to share with you 3 of those basic subjects. When I met him, I was 25 years old, and when I first got acquainted with him, I used a lot of excuses as to why I wasn't doing well. And he said, well, tell me a little bit about your story. And I told him, you know, I was behind on my bills, had pennies in my pocket and nothing in the bank, that I was embarrassed about being behind on my big mouth promises to my family. And then he gave me one little simple phrase that really forever changed my life. And here's what he said. Mr. Rohn, if you want the future to change for you, you've got to change. And he said, if you don't change, the next 6 years of your life is going to be just like the last 6. You'll still be behind on your bills. You'll still be behind on your promises. But then he gave it to me in the form of a promise. When I was 25 years old, I've remembered it all these years, and I've shared this promise now with probably over 3 million people in the last 30-plus years. And it's going to be valid for you, so listen carefully to this promise. My teacher said to me, young man, if you will change, everything will change for you. If you will get better, everything will get better for you. What a clear message that was for me. He said, if you'll change your philosophy, if you'll change your habits, if you'll refine your thinking, if you'll change and accept some new disciplines, if you'll turn the corner where you've been in the past, go for a new life for the future, he said all kinds of remarkable things will happen for you if you will change. Before I met Mr. Shoaff, I used to cross my fingers and say, I sure hope things will change. I was hoping the government would change and the tax structure would change and that my boss would change and pay me more money. I was hoping that, you know, economics would change and prices would come down. And I was hoping that circumstances would get better. And then I discovered from my teacher that those things are going to continue the same. In fact, all of those things that happen to us is kind of like the wind that blows. And the wind blows on us all. In fact, in America especially, the last 6,500 years of recorded history, we've got probably the most favorable wind that's ever blown. Economics and circumstances, living in a free country, democracy and freedom, an excellent economy. Sure, we struggle at times, but compared to the rest of the world in the last 6,500 years, we've got the best wind ever. But if you just let the wind blow, I'm telling you, it won't take you where you want to go. All of us must use this wind to take us to the dreams we've got, to the equities we want, to the money we want, to the income we want, and to all the things we want our life to have. This is where we want to go, and we've got a good wind, but we must not leave our future just to the wind, just to the economy, just to the structure of the way things are happening today. Here's what we must learn to do, and that is set a good sail. And if you'll learn to set a good sail, and that's what my teacher taught me in those early days. He said, Mr. Rohn, the wind is going to blow however it's going to blow. Politics are going to be politics, and the economy is going to be the economy. And however it turns out, that's the way it's going to be. What you must learn to do is not to wish for a better wind. That's naive. The key is to wish for the wisdom and the skills and the learning so that you can set a better sail. And so that's what I did at age 25. I went to work not on the economy. I went to work not on the community. I didn't go to work to try to change the government. I didn't go to work to try to change my boss or the company. I didn't go to work to try to change circumstances. I went to work to try to change myself. And I picked up that promise my teacher shared with me, that if I would change, my income would change. If I would change, my bank account would change. If I would change, my future would change. And sure enough, his promise came true for me. The first 6 years of my economic life, I wound up broke. Those pennies in my pocket, nothing in the bank, behind on my promises. The second 6 years of my economic life, I wound up rich. But interestingly enough, the second 6 years of my economic life, the government was about the same and the economy was about the same. You know, the companies were about the same. What they paid was the same. Circumstances around me were the same. You know, my negative relatives were the same. But I was not the same. That's how my life changed. And that's how things started working for me, changing my life all those years ago. So that's what I wanted to share with you to begin with, this beginning of what Mr. Shoaff shared with me, that if I wanted my life to change, this was what I was going to have to do. And so he broke it down into 3 subjects that really made an impact on my life, and I want to share those with you. The first subject he called personal development. And the second subject he called setting goals. And the third was how to become financially independent. And I'd like to give you just a few clues from those three major subjects that so dramatically affected my life. And let's get started. The first one is personal development. Now, in illustrating personal development, Mr. Schoaf, my teacher, started with money. You know, money's not the only place to start in talking personal development, but it's where he started, so let me share the thoughts he shared with me back then. Let me share them with you. Here's the best lesson I can give you on economics. It's very simple. We get paid for bringing value to the marketplace. That's about as simple as I can put economics. We get paid for bringing value to the marketplace. Now, it takes time to bring value to the marketplace. However, we do not get paid for time, so we cross that out. Mistakenly, the man says, I'm making about $20 for an hour. Not true. If that was true, you could just stay home, right, and have them send your money. So that's not true. We don't get paid for time. We get paid for value brought to the marketplace. Now, since that's true, here's one of the key questions of my talk to you today. Is it possible to become twice as valuable to the marketplace and make twice as much money in the same time? Is that possible? The answer is yes. Could you become 3 times as valuable as you might be right now to the marketplace and make 3 times as much money in the same time? And the answer is yes. 5 times, 10 times? Of course. America is unique. It's a ladder to climb. It starts down here, let's say, at $5 an hour, and it keeps going up. Top income last year, $80 million. The guy who runs Coca-Cola. Now, that's a heck of a ladder. That's why everybody wants to come here, right? The boat people are not headed for Vietnam. People haven't plotted and schemed for 50 years saying if I could just get to Poland, everything would be okay. Not true. Everybody wants to come to America. And the reason is because we've got the best wind ever blowing in our favor. We've got the best economic opportunity anybody's had in 6,500 years. And all you have to do is understand it and take advantage of it. Now, there's some key questions to ask here. Why would the marketplace pay someone only $5 an hour? Very simple answer. They're not very valuable to the marketplace. Now, we must underline to the marketplace. This person might be a very valuable brother, yes. Member of the family, valuable, yes. Valuable member of the church, of course. Valuable citizen of the country, yes. Valuable in the sight of God, no doubt. We're all of equal value in the sight of God. But if you're not very valuable to the marketplace, you don't get much money. You say, well, it shouldn't be that way. Well, then you got to start your own country. You know, this one's been in process for 200 years, and this is the best we've been able to come up with so far. But here's the key. You don't have to stay here. Now, there was a big debate in Congress last year that this $5 was not enough, should be 6, should be 6, should be 6. But we don't need legislation. 6 is already on this ladder. The next step up. You know, if you work for McDonald's, they'll pay you $5 an hour to take out the trash. If you whistle while you take out the trash, they'll pay you $6 an hour. So we don't need that legislation. You just need to take lessons on how to whistle. Have a good attitude. Now, as you begin to climb this ladder, why would the marketplace pay some people $50 an hour? Answer, evidently, they must be more valuable to the marketplace. 10 times more valuable. And is that possible for someone to be 10 times more valuable and earn $50 an hour instead of 5? And the answer is yes. That's what America is all about. Now, why would the marketplace pay some people $500 an hour? Evidently, this person must be much more valuable to the marketplace. That's what's important to understand, to the marketplace. And would the marketplace pay one person $80 million for 1 year's work? And the answer is, of course. If you helped a company make $1 billion, would they pay you $80 million? I'm telling you, it is possible. And that's why America is so exciting. That's why this financial ladder is so exciting. It's possible for all of this to come true for all of you, no matter where you start. As a student in school, just getting started out there in the workplace, this is all possible for you. Now, Mr. Schoaf gave me the clue on how to climb this ladder as high as I wanted to climb. Now, we're talking primarily economics here. There's a lot of other ways to become valuable to your family, valuable to your friends, valuable to the community, valuable to the team, right? Valuable to the team effort, valuable to the concert. But here's what he said to me. In climbing this ladder economically, all you have to do is work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Once I heard that, it made sense to me. I kept hoping that everything else would change around me, found out that if I went to work on myself, worked on my skills, worked on my language, if I became better than I was each year, if I grew in skills and language and vocabulary and competence, then I would become attractive to the marketplace. Not very long ago, a company called me and said, Mr. Rohn, we're expanding internationally. We'd like to have a bit of your expertise to help us. Would you give us a bit of your time? We'll add some millions to your fortune. And I said, okay. And I thought later, isn't that interesting they would call me? Then my second thought was, of course they'd call me. Who else would they call? I can get the job done. Now, what a contrast for me, farm boy from Idaho, raised in obscurity, parents of modest means, broke when I was 25. How come I would get a telephone call and someone offer me a lot of money to help them in expanding around the world? Simple answer, evidently. Something happened to me between age 25 and where I am today. And I can tell you where it all started. From my teacher, Mr. Schoaf, who said to me, we don't have to change what's going on out there. That's the wind that's blowing. All we have to do is change what's going on in here. And now there's several ways to do that on personal development. And let me give you those ways. Here's the first one. We must learn from personal experience. Pretty simple. Learn from what happens to you. Take a look back over the last few months. Did you make some mistakes? How could you correct those for the future? Take a look back over the last year. Have you done it right or done it wrong? Let's correct it for the next year. Learn from your personal experience. Mr. Schoaf asked me when I first met him, he said, Mr. Rohn, how are you doing? You've been out there now 6 years. And I said, I'm not doing very well. He said, I suggest you not do that anymore. What a simple, swift analysis to my situation. He said, if you keep doing it, the next 6 years will be like the last 6. You don't want that to happen. Let's make the changes. So learn from your personal experience. Now, here's number 2, why I came to share this video experience with you today. And that, I call it OPE, other people's experiences. That's me, other people. That's your teacher, other people. That's your friends and colleagues, other people. The people you meet that can pass along to you their experiences, what's happened to them, the mistakes they made, how they corrected them, how they changed their health and changed their bank account and changed their income and changed their future. That's it, other people. Now, there's 2 kinds of people to learn from. One is failures. It's too bad failures don't give seminars, right? That would be valuable. Bring your notebook, have them tell you how they lost it all and threw it all away, threw their health away and threw their friendships away and things didn't work out well. That would be valuable. But now then we must also learn from positive, people that have done well. They've got the health, and so we ask them, how did you become so healthy? They've got the skills, so we ask them, how did you become this skillful? They've got the income, so we ask them, how did you get here in such a short period of time? So now here's what's important in personal development. In learning from other people, we learn, number 1, by observation. We learn what we see. We watch people that are successful in what they do. In sports, we watch their disciplines. In business, we watch their disciplines. by observation, what we can see. The reason I created this video is something that you could see someone's experiences translated for you. Second, we learn by what we hear. I've got some of my lectures on cassette tapes, so you can take them with you wherever you go and learn by listening. Turn your car into a mobile classroom and listen. And then listen to the sermon on Sunday morning. Listen to the lectures. Listen to the teacher. Listen to someone who's got something good to say. And then number 3 is vitally important on personal development, and that is read all the books you can possibly read in your lifetime. Mr. Schoaf got me started on my library. I've got one of the better libraries. Haven't read everything in it, but I feel smarter just walking in it, my library. At least I was smart enough to buy it. Now I got to be smart enough to read it. And then, of course, I got to be smart enough to decide what's valuable and then do it. But this one is very important. Become a good reader. Some books that helped change my life. Mr. Schoaf recommended, of course, the Bible. And my parents made sure I was a pretty good scholar by the time I was 18. That's been so beneficial for me, drawing from those illustrations, reading about those stories, people who made it and people who didn't make it, and what the difference was. And then other books that helped to really change my life. One called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And then a book that helped me become financially independent by the time I was 31. And that book is called The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. And I'm going to share a little bit of that book with you when I get to financial independence today, our third subject. But I started reading the books, attending the classes, making sure that I got in front of people that had something good to say. And then I started keeping a journal. One of the major things my teacher taught me was to keep a journal. He said, don't trust your memory. If you hear something good, just make a little note and write it down. Now, at first I took, notes on pieces of paper and torn off corners and backs of old envelopes. And it didn't serve me well, thrown in a drawer. Then I learned to keep a journal, a bound copy of all my notes. So I would suggest you do the same. Things that impress you, a poem that impresses you. When you attend a class, some of the ideas that impressed you, jot them down. You read something in a magazine, right? Some ideas. Take those out, put them in your journal. Keep a good journal the rest of your life. This will serve you well. My journals make up a significant portion of my own library. And if you saw my library and saw my journals, I tell you what you'd have to say. This is the library, and these are the journals of a very serious student. No wonder Mr. Rohn is invited to lecture and speak on his experiences around the world. So I want the same thing to happen to you. Value captured that you can resort to later, go back over it and review it, and let it become valuable to you. So that's my first subject, personal development. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Develop the skills. Learn the lessons. Take the classes. Absorb all that is being taught to you these days. And then later on, of course, you can sort it out, what's valuable to you and how to refine it for your business and for your life and for your future. But the main thing is to get it and start this process of personal change, personal development. And let me say it one more time. If you will change, everything will change for you. You'll never be the same. You'll keep growing. As you look back on a few months, look back on a few years, you won't believe the progress you can make. Economically, your relationship with your family, your friends, and whether you're in sports or economics or whatever, I'm telling you, that whole process of committing yourself for personal change, personal value, can really make your life unique and worthwhile. Now let's cover the second subject, on setting goals. Mr. Schoaf gave me some tips on setting goals that changed my life forever. And I want to share those with you. So let's talk about setting goals, and I also want to tie it to personal development, and you'll see how I'm going to do it as I progress here. Setting goals. We need to take a look into the future. There are 4 things to consider in terms of attitude. One is how you feel about the past. Best advice I can give you on that is treat the past as a school. Let it teach you the mistakes you've made, the things that went wrong, the things that didn't work. Don't use the past as a burden to carry, and don't use the past as a club to beat yourself to death. Past losses, past failures, past mistakes. But let the past be a school. Tough school maybe. We've all been through some tough stuff. So if you feel good about the past, draw from it for experience and let it teach you. Then next is how you feel about the future. We've got to have the future well designed. The future is called the promise. And here's what we teach in our leadership series. The promise of the future can be an awesome force for your own future. The promise of the future, designing the future. There's two ways to face the future. One is with apprehension, and the other is with anticipation. I promise you, in my travels around the world, most people face the future with apprehension. And here's why. They don't have it well designed. They've sort of left that up to someone else to fix. But here's the best way to face the future, with anticipation. And you can face the future with anticipation if the future is clear, if the future is well designed. And I would like to have you consider some thoughts with me that help me to really change my future by giving it some thought and some consideration. And here it is. In setting goals, it's very simple. Number one, decide what you want. You just take a little time. You sit down and say, what do I want? What kind of skills do I want? What kind of income do I want for the future? What would I like? Where would I like to go? Places I'd like to visit. Habits I'd like to acquire. Skills I'd like to have. You just take a little time to think about what you want. Economics, friendships, people you'd like to meet, places you'd like to go. You just take some time. And then I suggest, when you've thought about what you want for the future, make a list. Just jot it all down. It's really a very simple process. And then here's number three. Keep all the old lists. I'm telling you, this served me so well, keeping my old list of goals. I look back now 10, 20 years ago at goals I set, lists I made, and I smile now because here's what I thought was so important, 20 years ago. Now some of those things aren't even on my list. I've got a new list. I've grown. I've changed. I've matured. But I give you that advice. Decide what you want. Number two, write it down. Number three, keep the old lists. And then here's number four. When you get something that's on one of these lists, check it off. Part of the fun of having a list is checking it off. And then if you can add some drama to checking it off, see, that's what really helps. I set a goal to go to Spain many, many years ago. And when I finally made my first trip to Spain, I had that journal with me that had that list in it. And while I had my journal on my lap, waiting for the wheels to touch down in Madrid, I waited until the wheels touched the runway, and I checked it off, just adding a little drama. So part of the fun of having a list is checking it off. Now, here's what's important about the lists and designing your future. If the future gets clear, the price gets easier. Because you got to remember, for every promise, there's a price to pay. Everybody's got to pay the price. Everybody's got to do the deal. Everybody's got to do the disciplines. Everybody has to pay. But here's what I've discovered. If the promise is clear and powerful, the price is easy to pay. The price is some classes. The price is a few books. The price is a few disciplines. The price is finding something that'll make your life better, make you grow, make you change, make you develop. So the first part of the key is to design the promise. Then, what is the price to pay? I'm telling you, the price will be easy. Anybody in my audience can pay it, no matter where you are, where you come from. Color doesn't matter, religion doesn't matter, where you grew up doesn't matter, circumstances don't matter. I'm telling you, if you'll make the promise of the future clear for yourself, the things you want, the places you want to go, the things you want to have, the person you want to become, the skills you want, the homes you want, the future you want, the friends you want, all of the values of life that you could possibly want. If you'll make that clear, make those lists, and be serious about it, I promise you it's an easy price to pay. Anybody can pay it. And the best advice I can give you is, if I can do it, you can do it. Farm boy from Idaho, raised in obscurity, I changed my life, turned it upside down, turned it all around, found economics, found future, found promise, and if I can do it, you can do it. So, start setting your goals, and see if you can't get a better excitement going for the things you want to accomplish for the future. Now here's my third subject, and that's called financial independence. Oh, by the way, before I get to financial independence, let me cover one more point. One of the major reasons for setting goals is for what they make of you in achieving them. My teacher advised me when I first got started at age 25, he said, "Jim, why don't you set a goal to become a millionaire?" He said, "It's got a nice ring to it. You know, enough zeros to impress your accountant." And he said, "I'm here to help you. You're only 25 years old. You've been to 1 year of college. You've got a beautiful family, every reason to do it. Why don't you set a goal to become a millionaire?" And he said, "Here's why." And I thought, he doesn't need to teach me why. Wouldn't it be nice to have $1 million? He said, "No, then you'll miss it." He said, "Here's why. For what it will make of you to achieve it." I'm telling you, that statement changed my life. Set the kind of goals that will make something of you to achieve them. He said, "Now, once you become a millionaire, what's important is not the money." I thought, that's kind of strange teaching. He said, "Honest, it isn't important." He said, "You could just give the money away." Now, I did better than that. I lost it all. By the time I was 31, I was a millionaire. By the time I was 33, I was broke. And I'll tell you a little bit about that story later. But when I lost all my money, guess what? I found out Mr. Schoaf was right. What was valuable was not the money. What was valuable was what I became to earn the money. The skills I had, the knowledge I had about the marketplace, the values that I had going for me. They were more valuable than the money. And here's an important statement to remember. It's not what you get that makes you valuable. It's what you become. So part of the key here is to set the kind of goals that will make something of you. Don't set them too low so that you don't have to grow and you don't have to read and you don't have to try and you don't have to stretch. Don't set them too low. And then don't sell out. Don't go for something that's going to cost you your virtue or cost you your values or sell out your principles. There's a good middle road here to follow. Goals that will inspire, goals that will help you grow, change, develop, and become better than you are. Okay. Now let's talk about financial independence. How to become rich by 40, 35 if you're extra bright, much sooner if you find an opportunity like I did. Let me show you how I did it. Financial independence. First of all, I like the phrase financial independence. Some people are a little bit concerned about using the word becoming rich or becoming wealthy, and I can understand that. I struggled a little bit with this. Is it okay to go for becoming rich, go for becoming wealthy? And maybe that's a bit too strong a word or strong a term. So here's what I've come up with that I think is comfortable for me, and that is how to become financially independent. I think it's every person's heritage here, especially in America, to become financially independent. Now, let me give you my definition of financial independence. Financial independence is the ability to live from the income of your own personal resources. Financial independence. Now it depends on how you want to live. If you need $2,000, $3,000 a month, if you need $4,000 or $5,000 a month, if you need $10,000 a month, some people may need, $100,000 a month. But whatever you would need to live, and you could earn that living from the income of your own personal resources, that's what I call financial freedom, financial independence. And let me show you how to acquire it. If you start at age 15, between ages 15 and 35 is 20 years, and in my personal opinion, based on my own studies and my own experience, 20 years, in my opinion, is enough time to become financially independent. If you're not, you don't live in the wrong country. Probably what's happened is you have the wrong plan. And it's easy to be a nice person with the wrong plan. I found that when I was 25 years old. I was broke at age 25, and I was a nice guy. You would have liked me. But I'm telling you, my plans up until then, especially my financial plan, left me broke. I totally changed it the next 6 years, and I became financially independent. So I know what I'm talking about. It is possible in a reasonable amount of time, 15 to 35, whatever, 20 years' time, enough time. You can do it in a much shorter period of time, like I did if you want to, but this is a reasonable enough time. But here's number one. First of all, you got to have the right philosophy. Philosophy is our ability to gather knowledge and sort through it and decide what's valuable. To develop a philosophy about life, a philosophy about our health, a philosophy about our family relationships, a philosophy about economics. And if you develop the right philosophy, that's what helps to set this sail so that in 6 years it takes you where you want to go instead of winding up like I did that first 6 years of my economics, broke, no money, empty bank account. The right philosophy. Now let me give you a couple of philosophies to consider. Here's the first one. It's called the philosophy of the poor. And here it is. Poor people usually spend their money and invest what's left. That's the philosophy of the poor. Now here's the philosophy of the rich. Rich people invest their money and spend what's left. And here's the startling answer. It really doesn't matter what the amount is. What's most important is not the amount. What's really important is the philosophy. So I would ask you to adopt this philosophy of spending after you have invested. Invest first, then spend. And I've got a little formula that I'm going to share with you. Now, what should a child do with a dollar? I mean, there's a lot of debate going on, I'm sure, across the country on what a child should do with a dollar. Here's one opinion. It's only a child and it's only a dollar. What difference does it make? Well, in my opinion, it makes all the difference in the world. A person's economic future starts with a child with a dollar. Somebody says, oh, no, you're only young once. Let him spend it all. Well, when would you hope that would stop? Somebody says, well, wait till he's 50 and broke like me and then he'll learn. Well, no, we don't want to wait that long. If I would have known earlier than age 25, I would have changed. In high school, if they would have had classes called Wealth 1, Wealth 2, I'd have taken both classes. I would not have waited until age 25. So, the earlier the better. So, what should a child do with a dollar? Here's the simple premise to begin with. Don't spend it all. And if a child wants to spend the whole dollar, you got to say, hey, don't spend it all. Don't spend it all. They'll say, why not? It's my dollar. I earned it. You say, I know you earned it, but don't spend it all. They'll still say, why not? Say, let me show you why not. So you put them in your car, take them to the other side of town, and show them where people live that spend the whole dollar. You just drive them around. Kids learn best by visual. Just drive around and say, would you like to live here? Kid says, no. Would you like to live like these people live? Kid says, no, no. Then you can't spend the whole dollar. So, kids will get the message. So, take them to the other side of town, show them around, unless you already live there, and then just show them around. Anyway, don't spend the whole dollar. Now, let me give you my best view of what to do with the dollar. And I promise you, if you started at age 15, now if you're over 15, right, you've still got plenty of time. You still got 20 years. If you're 30, you've still got 20 years. I mean, you still got plenty of time to start what I'm about to share with you. What to do with a dollar. Here's my first bit of advice. Never spend more than 70 cents. Never spend more than 70 cents. Now, you got to pick some number, and the number you pick is going to be determined by your philosophy. It's going to be determined by what you've been taught or your experience teaching yourself. When I first met my teacher, Mr. Schoaf, I was at about 110% of each dollar. I'm down at budget finance, hawking my furniture and my car one more time. And then I learned a whole better formula for financial independence. Number one, don't spend more than 70 cents. Now, kids say to me, well, okay, what do I do with the other 30 cents? And here's what I teach them. 10 cents for charity. Charity or church, or helping people that can't help themselves. 10 cents to support worthy projects, projects that you feel good about. 10 cents out of every dollar. It's called being generous with part of what you've taken out of society. Now, in my opinion, nothing teaches us character better than generosity. No class, no teacher, no book teaches character better than generosity. And the best time to start is when the amounts are small. And I know if kids learn these lessons well, they'll give a dime out of a dollar, help people that can't help themselves, support worthy projects. Or if you belong to a church, they teach tithe, piece of. That's very important. Now, because when the amounts get larger, sometimes it's a little more difficult. You know, giving 100,000 out of $1 million, someone says, oh, if I had $1 million, I'd give 100,000. I'm not sure. That's a lot of money. So the time to start is when the amounts are small, 10 cents out of the dollar. Okay, next 10 cents I call active capital. Active capital means do something to make a profit. Active capital. Set aside a portion of your income. Wages are okay, but I'm telling you, wages will make you a living. Profits will make you a fortune. So set aside part of your income as capital, called active capital. Any kind of project you can possibly think of, you can possibly come up with. I'm going to write a new book, I think, for kids. I think the title is going to be, Of Course, Kids Should Pay Taxes. It's kind of an interesting title. In California, kids do pay taxes. When a child walks into 7-Eleven, buys something that costs $1, the proprietor says, give me 7 more pennies. And the child says, hey, what's these 7 pennies for? And the proprietor says, that's the taxes. Kid says, well, hey, I'm only 8 years old. Proprietor says, congratulations, you're my youngest taxpayer. Give me the money. So in California, where I live, kids do pay taxes. Big question is, should they? And my book will answer that question. Of course, kids should pay taxes. Nothing is for free. If you want to ride your bicycle on the sidewalk instead of in the mud, you got to pay the 7 pennies. Nothing is free, so we all have to pay. So, 10 cents out of your living, out of the money you earn, set aside for capital. Capital to try your best to show a profit. And in my book, it's going to be all kinds of ways kids can make money, right? 2 bicycles, one to ride and one to rent. I mean, you know, it doesn't take long to figure out some enterprise that'll start making a profit. Then you must jot this down if you're taking notes. Profits are better than wages. 1, you can't usually start wages until you're about 16, 15, 16, but you can make a profit long before you're eligible to start earning wages. And then there's no limit to profits, and they can double and triple and quadruple. You know, there's no limit. It's incredible how fast profits can grow. So profits are better than wages. Wages make you a living. Profits make you a fortune. Now, the third 10 cents is vitally important. I call it passive capital. Capital you let somebody else use. A financial institution, stocks and bonds, mutual funds, whatever. Let someone else use it. You furnish the money. They use it to make a profit, but they pay you for the use of it, called interest. And here's one of the things that will make you financially independent fairly quickly, and that's called compound interest. And this is how you get it. Letting someone else use a portion of your money, your substance. They show the profit. They pay you interest. And this passive capital, I'm telling you, over a sustained period of time, if you'll develop this little 10, 10, 10, and 70, especially starting at age 15, I'm telling you, by the time you're 35, you will be financially independent. You'll have the ability to live from the income of your own resources. And then one more point on passive capital. There's a Bible philosophy. I'm an amateur on the Bible. But there's a Bible philosophy that teaches the borrower is servant to the lender. And if you want to be in a powerful position as you grow older, finally when you become mature, maybe have your own business, things have worked out for you for the future, the position you always want to be in is the power position, and that's called the lender. The lender is the power position. So if kids learn early enough, and then you ask them what they'd like to be when they grow up, I'm telling you, once they understand, they'll say, well, one of the things I want to be is one of those lenders. That's the power position, not the spender. No, you'll be pitied the rest of your life if you just become a spender. You got to become a lender. And I think this is the one formulas to follow. 10 cents out of every dollar. Let someone else use it. Be the lender, power position. Then try to show a profit. Can't we teach our children how to take $1, search the neighborhood, find a broken wagon, pay $1 for it, bring it home, You know, clean it up, sand it until it's clean, paint it red till it shines, straighten out the wheels till they're true, take it back to the neighborhood, sell it for $5. Anybody can do that. Now, does the child deserve $4 profit? And the answer is yes. Society now has a mended wagon. And that's what America's all about. Finding something, touching it, making it better, making a profit, taking part of your resources, helping people who can't help themselves. Let someone else use it to make a profit. Some projects require more capital than one person has. Exciting. And then let them pay you for the use of it. America's had this philosophy now all these years. Communism has taught all these years capital belongs in the hands of the state, not in the hands of the people. We've been teaching all these years capital belongs in the hands of the people, not in the hands of the state. And we turned out to be right. Capital in the hands of the kids, capital in the hands of the people. Enterprises that make a profit, enterprises that grow. It's the hope of our future. So that little simple formula, I hope, will help you. Now, one more key on financial independence, and that is attitude. Attitude. Here's number one. I used to say, I hate to pay my bills. My teacher straightened me out on that. He said, let's see, Mr. Rohn, what you hate to do is pay $100 on an account and reduce your liabilities and increase your assets. I said, well, no, not if you look at it that way. He said, well, it all depends on how you look at it. So wouldn't you love to pay your bills, reduce your liabilities, increase your assets? You got to have that kind of attitude. I found out the same attitude about taxes. I used to say, I hate to pay my taxes. And Mr. Shove said, well, that's one way to live. But don't you understand? Taxes is how we care and feed the goose that lays the golden eggs. Wouldn't you want to do your share? Someone says, yes, but the goose eats too much. Probably true. But hey, we all eat too much. We all need to go on a diet. Better a fat goose than no goose. So I finally became a happy taxpayer. Now, I think taxes are too high, so I'm working to get taxes lowered for our economic future. But then whatever they turn out to be, I gladly pay, do my part, because that's what makes the whole system run, each of us doing our part. Now, I want these three subjects to be valuable for you. I want them to have meaning for you. I want you someday to be financially independent. I want you to have the personal development so that you feel good about yourself. If I had a chance to meet you someday, I'd like to have you show me the list of goals that you got started and say, Mr. Rohn, here's some I've already checked off. Here's the books I'm reading. Here's what's happened. I'm developing the skills. I'm better this year than I was last year. I've got more self-confidence. My skills are developing. That's what I want for you, and that's why I took the time to come and share in this video message with you. I do seminars all around the world, but this is one way that I can reach out and touch you in case you can't come to my seminars wherever I am. Maybe this video will reach you somewhere, and it'll have an impact on your life. And what I'd like to do is later hear about it, a letter, phone call, or to have a chance to meet you in person. And now I'd like to leave you with these 4 questions called questions to ponder. These questions were valuable for me, and I want to make them valuable for you. Here's the first one, why? We all ask why we should work this hard, why take that many classes, why go to school that many years, you know, why take the notes, why read the books, why work that hard, why put yourself through the push-ups and the disciplines, why? Good question, why? Best answer to why, I think, is the second question. Why not? Why not see how many books you can read, how many classes you can take, how many skills you can develop? Why not see how valuable you can become to the marketplace and to your friends and to your family? Why not see what you can make of yourself? Why not see how far you can go, how much you can see, how much you can earn, how much you can share? Why not? That's the heritage all of us have, in America especially, is to see what we can make out of our lives now that we've been given this extraordinary opportunity. Now, my third question I'd love to ask you in person. But since I can't do it in person, I want to ask it of all of you. But I want you to take it personally. And my third question is, why not you? Why not you with good self-esteem? Why not you starting to change and setting goals? Why not you starting to make progress toward financial independence? If I can do it, you can do it. I wished I had a lot more testimonials here today besides mine. a whole steady stream that would come by and tell you their story. Someone who started with nothing, finally run a big enterprise. A mother who was on welfare, now she owns her own business. In addition to my story, I wish I had a lot more. And if all of them told their story, guess how they would probably wind up their story? They'd probably say, just like me, why not you? If we can read, you can read. If we can change, you can change. If we can figure it out, you can figure it out. If we can turn it around, you can turn it around. There isn't anything you can't accomplish. That's what those testimonials would say. And so I want to say it to you personally. Why not you? You've got the brains. You've got the stamina. You've got the vitality. You've got the interest. You've got your life ahead of you. You've got the future. You can do it. If anybody can do it, you can do it. If one of us can do it, hey, we all can do it. And now here's my last question. Why not now? This is a good time as the 20th century starts to wind down, a few more years as we get ready for century 21. What a good time to set your goals, work on yourself, work on your skills. What a good time to get it together. What a good time to start this process. Personal development, growing, changing, developing, having a good plan for your money and for your life and for your future. Why not now? And I hope I have a chance to see you one of these days and share with you the experience, the reaction, the response you might have had from my message today. And until I get a chance to see you on this side of the world or the other side of the world, in some school or some seminar, or maybe I'll come and speak for a company that you work for someday. I hope I get a chance to meet you. Until then, I wish you the best. I want all that I've gotten to be yours and much, much more. God bless. Goodbye. Let's now get to our last subject called leadership. We'll take about another 30 minutes here, cover some on leadership, and then we'll take our last short 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and finish up the day, finishing up leadership. The title of the weekend was called The Making of a Leader. And it takes a lot of things, really, for the skill of leadership. All the things we've talked about, the personal development side, and setting goals, being able to make plans, game plans, time management, communication, all of that is all part of the preparation and the continuing schooling and education of leadership. But now we're going to cover the subject per se, leadership. And I've got an interesting phrase to start with under leadership, and it goes like this. To attract other people, you must be attractive. And we've covered that, sort of sprinkled throughout the last couple of days. What you want, you attract. So to attract other people, you must be attractive. So a big part of the process of leadership is self-development. Not people development, but self-development. Leadership, the great challenge of the 80s. I call it, in all kinds of fields: science, politics, industry, education, sales. We do need some leadership in the sales field. We're still hearing some of the old cliches of the 30s, right? Roll the pencil across the table, and before it drops, they'll grab it, and you ask them to sign. I mean, you know, we don't need those tricky things anymore. People are a lot more sophisticated. They're a lot brighter these days, right? The old sales tricks won't work, you know. True sales is an educational process. Let me tell you what I've got and how it works. See if you like it. And if I'm good at it, I'm sure you'll buy. If I'm not sure. Let me try. Just honesty and sincerity and upfront and leveling with everybody. I tell you what's hard for other people to handle: total sincerity and honesty. I mean, what do you do with that? I mean, tricks, you can learn to be tricky. If somebody wants to spar, you can learn to spar. If somebody wants to dance and dodge, you can learn to dance and dodge. But what do you do with total honesty and total sincerity? See, that's hard. Schoaf said in the sales field at first, he said, just go out and be just totally sincere. So I did it. In those early days, somebody say, why should I buy from you? I said, because I need the sale. If I don't sell something soon, I'm in deep trouble. I couldn't believe what that disclosure would do for some people. Try total honesty, and that was total honest. If you don't buy, I'm in trouble. The guy says, well, okay, I'll buy, right? I mean, I couldn't believe it. If you got to, sell with tears in your eyes. See, I tell you why I'm troubled right now. I'm new at this, and I'm afraid if I don't tell it right, you won't buy, and you'll miss the opportunity. I wish this was a year from now. I know you'd buy, but let me try my best. See, just honesty. What can somebody do with just honesty? After I'd make a sale, or try to make a sale, guy says, no, I'm really not interested. I'd say, look, I know now you're not going to buy, but would you give me some tips? I'm brand new at this sales. Would you give me some tips as to why you didn't buy? Is it because I'm new and I stumbled a little bit? Because I know you need the product. Did you not buy because I wasn't strong enough? Those are interesting questions, aren't they? That's called let's get right down to it. Now see, I was so simple back then in my presentation, I'd just ask, how come you didn't buy? I know you need it. Is it because I'm new? Guy says, well, yeah, probably about a year from now when you get better, I would have bought. Said, then I got, a little better at saying, well, why don't you go ahead and buy? Let's pretend it's a year from now. I don't know, just honesty. Just let it all hang out. Just tell it like it is. Being clever just isn't really the way to do it. Just honesty. Anyway, we need some of that kind of leadership, instructions, helping people these days. Here's another challenge for leadership: parents. A lot of parents are hoping someone else will exercise the leadership role. Teachers or the church or the school or the community. Somebody will take up the task of being the example of leadership. But this is a challenge for parents to take up themselves, to become leaders. Here's the real challenge for leadership. Leadership is the challenge to be something more than mediocre. The challenge to be something more than mediocre. It was said of Abraham Lincoln, when his mother died, he was at her bedside. when she died. And her last words to him were, "Be somebody, Abe." And if that story is true, he must have taken it to heart. Be somebody. That's a good challenge. Be somebody. Be somebody wise. Be somebody strong. Strength is attractive. Be somebody kind. All of the attributes of leadership are a unique challenge. Now here's the real key. Learn to be strong but not rude. There's always the thin line that you have to watch and make sure you don't cross. Learn to be strong but not rude. The challenge is to be kind but not weak. Learn to be bold but not a bully. The challenge is to be humble but not timid. Be thoughtful but not lazy. Learn to be proud but not arrogant. That's a challenge. Learn to have humor without folly. It's okay to, tell funny stories, but the key in leadership is don't be silly, right? There's a difference between being silly and having humor. Okay, that's the challenge of leadership. Now, leadership should understand the 20%, 80% rule. And the 20%, 80% rule, I don't know exactly where it came from, but if you're going to be involved with people any amount of time or any number of people from whatever walks of life, you've got to understand what we call the 20%, 80% rule. And if you haven't heard it before, let me give it to you. The 20%, 80% rule says, it seems like, and that's a lot of things, right? It seems like 20% of the people do 80% of the business, and 80% of the people do 20%. It's just one of those strange things about life. And we can ask whys all day long. A lot of things you don't ask why. Let the obvious be your best teacher. Almost any enterprise, right? Whether it's a business or a club or whatever. Sure enough, 20% of the people do 80%, 80% do 20%. Ask the minister of the church, right? Who picks up the tab here? I'll bet you he will say, well, let's see, about 20% of the people pick up 80% of the tab. And 80% pick up 20%. It's just one of those interesting statistics about life, okay? Now, once you understand the 20%, 80% rule, here's what you must learn to do as a leader. Don't try to change it. This is not something you change. This is something you work with. See, there's a lot of things in life you don't change. You don't say, I think I'll take fall and put it after winter. Say, no, no, no. See, that's too difficult. You don't change fall around and put it after winter. You leave it where it is. But you learn to work with it like it is. Okay? The best beginning for any successful venture is reality. Let's figure out how it really is. And not kid ourselves. And not wish it was different. Okay? So we take the 20%, 80% rule like it is, and we learn to work with it. Now, here are some of the key points in understanding the 20%, 80% rule. If you wish to affect your business 80%, you must work with the 20%. It's just one of those things you just learn to work with to affect your business 80%, you work with the 20% that are creating 80% of the business. Now, let me give you a unique part of life. The pull is in the opposite direction. And it always is. Here's what success is. Success is learning to move in the opposite direction of the normal negative pull. Success is just overcoming the normal negative downward trend. Because I guess that's what life was meant to be, overcoming the normal negative downward pull. Success is moving in the opposite direction. Life that springs from the seed really is moving in the opposite direction. Gravity wants to pull the seed down, but sure enough, the seed being pulled down by the soil takes root, comes to life, right? Comes to life, takes root, starts to grow, and which way does it grow? Up, right? It gets the roots and the nourishment, but it grows up. It pushes its way against gravity, right? It moves up, and that's what success is. That's what life is, of movement in the opposite direction. So, guess who wants 80% of your attention? The wrong percentage. The 80% of whatever enterprise you're working with, you got a group of people going, 80% of them want 80% of your time. They say, well, we're the 80%. But see, you've got to learn to resist that. Now, you do it diplomatically. You do it with intelligence. But if you want to be successful, you got to do it. Okay? You've got to give 80% of your time to the 20% and 20% of your time to the 80%. Somebody says, well, now how do you do that? Well, now here's where you got to get smart. Here's what I learned to do with the 20%, 80% rule. I learned to give the 20% individual time and the 80% group time. I just figured that out. Right? Say, well, these 80% are only producing 20% of the business. So I've got to figure out a way to talk to them by groups. Now I can talk to an individual that's doing the high production, but I can only talk to the groups in these collection of people that are doing the small production. Okay? Now guess who wants your individual time? The wrong percentage. What you got to do is just diplomatically move in the opposite direction. You just diplomatically learn how to just give the group time to the 80%, individual time to the 20%. Now this is not something you fight, it's something you work with. Guy says, oh, I got it made, here's what I will do. I'll just eliminate the 80%. Right? They're only getting 20% of the business anyway. I'll just get rid of them. And I'll just keep the 20%. Well, you can do that, but here's what will happen pretty soon. The people that you've got left after you have fired the 80%, sure enough, 20% of them will be doing 80% of the business. And 80% will be doing 20%. This is like the seasons. This is not something you try to rearrange. This is something you get smart enough to work with. Now, every leader must have some listening time to what's going on in the field, what's happening with the people. Here's what you must do with your listening time. You must give 80% of your listening time to the 20%. And 20% of your listening time to the 80%. Now, guess who wants 80% of your listening time? The wrong percentage. So you just have to learn to be diplomatic. Okay? It's incredible. This is something you learn to work with and not against. Now, what you do is just learn to capitalize on the way things are. To create the market, most people buy when it's high and sell when it's low. Right? That's normal. That's the normal scare. That's the normal being uneasy. Buy when it's high, sell when it's low. Guess who becomes wealthy? The people who move in the opposite direction. Now that takes tremendous strength of will and capacity and knowledge. And it doesn't mean you hit it every time, but it does mean your chances are much better to buy when it's low and sell when it's high. Right? That's what success is. Success is moving in the opposite of the normal negative downward pull. But what's unique about human enterprise is unique things can be accomplished by understanding the world setup, understanding how people are, and learning how to work with it and not against it. Now next, we'll cover this and then we'll take a little break. Leadership should understand the law of averages. One of the most important studies to study is the law of averages. And the reason is because everybody's affected by it. This side of the world, the other side of the world. Business is affected by it, social, personal, people, religious, doesn't matter what it is. We're all affected by the law of averages. The church is affected by it. The office is affected by it. The community is affected by it. The state's affected by it. The families, everybody's affected by the law of averages. So it's a good one to understand how it works, what's going on, so you're not disappointed and tipped over and upset. See, once you find out the truth, there's a Bible phrase that says, the truth sets you free. And it sets you free from animosity. It sets you free from being tipped over and bent out of shape. You just have to understand how it is. People used to cut me off on the freeway. I would go absolutely bonkers. I'm now chasing them down the freeway. See, I learned not to do that, right? Because some things are just frustration. They accomplish nothing. It's like saying liars shouldn't lie. Now, see, that's called idle conversation. Right? There's no use even talking about that. Because, see, liars are going to lie. You can say they shouldn't, but that won't help. Okay? Liars lie. Cheaters cheat. Thieves steal. And you can say they shouldn't, but that's called idle conversation. Understand how it is. Right? Some things are, it's just like it is. Once you understand that that's how it is, see, now that takes you off the hook from being bent out of shape, disappointed, frustrated, angry, you don't understand, you're all confused. See, once you know, then it just takes away all the confusion and the misunderstanding and the misreading. Now when somebody cuts you off on the freeway, see, you learn to handle that better. You tell them they shouldn't, see, that won't help. Right? Because they're always going to do that. You know, if those people who cut you off on the freeway really tip you over, then you're going to be tipped over the rest of your life. Because those people are always going to do that. They're known as cutter offers on the freeway. I mean, that's what they are. One of the best things is to take the simple approach. The guy says to me, well, this is happening to me, and this is happening to me, and this is happening to me. I do this, and then this happens, and then this goes wrong, and then this happens. How come all these things happen to me? I'm trying my best. I say, sir, I really don't know. The best experience I've got over the last 25 years especially is those kind of things always happen to people like you. I don't know. That's the best I can figure out. What you've got to consider is, if you wish for it to change, you must consider that perhaps you should change. See, if this is happening to me, maybe it's because it's the person I am. Now, some things are accidents, I understand that. But some things are attracted. You've just got to make sure that it wasn't just accident, that maybe you're becoming that kind of cynical person. Maybe unhappiness is attracting unhappiness. Maybe overdue sadness is attracting sadness, right? Maybe confusion attracts confusion. And it's true, whatever we are attracts, so we must take a look and see where we are. But the law of averages is unique. And of course, the best place to study all the laws is in the Bible. Here's what the law of averages says. If you do something often enough, you will get a ratio of results. A ratio. And that's one of the key words in leadership to remember. Everything has ratios. Now, what do we mean by ratios? Well, it concerns anything. Let's say you just joined a new company and you're out selling some new product. And you talk to 10 people. You're just brand new. You talk to 10 people. Say, I got this neat product. And you present it to 10 people. 9 say no. And 1 says yes. Now, already you've got your ratio going. And we call it 1 out of 10. That's fairly simple, right? No matter what you do, if you do it continuously for a while, you'll get a ratio, some kind of ratio. Okay. In baseball, what do we call it? Batting average. See, if somebody's pitching, you're up there swinging, sure enough. Now, even if you're an amateur, if you keep swinging, you'll get one, right? The ball will hit your bat. I mean, right? You just get in the way. You know, you just do it often enough. But a ratio starts to develop, right? Now, here's an interesting question about the ratio. Who will this ratio work for? See, anybody can get a ratio started. That's a key word. Anyone can work on this ratio. Now, you might say, well, if you're getting started and 9 say no and 1 says yes, right, you're not doing that well. Well, see, at first you don't worry about doing well. At first you get a ratio going so that you can look at it and analyze it and see what's happening. That's why it's very important in sales we teach. Talk to lots of people every day, and at the end of the day, jot down your progress. This is why your journal is so important. At the end of the day, make a list of your progress. Here's what I did and here's what happened. So that you can go back over it and start analyzing it. So you can see what to fix and what to get on that's good and what to get off that's bad. But anybody can get one of these ratios going. Now, even those that say no are valuable because at first they listen to you practice your presentation, right? And we teach in sales, you don't want to make a sale, you want to become a salesperson. So these people who say no, they're listening to you practice. In fact, at first you might want to pay them. Say, here's $5, just listen to my presentation. I'm not that good at it yet. You know, whatever, right? To get this whole thing started. Now, this will work for anybody, 1 out of 10. Now, see, you can start to compete. Here's the next rule for the law of averages, the ratios. Once a ratio starts, it tends to continue. Once a ratio starts, it tends to continue. If you're just getting started, you talk to 10, 9 say no, 1 says yes. Here's what's exciting. Chances excellent, if you talk to 10 more, you get another one. It's uncanny. I don't even know how it works. All I know is it works. Sure enough, another one will say yes. And see, now, all you got to do is just do this 2 or 3 times. Talk to 10 more. Another one says yes. Now you know you're getting about 1 out of 10. And see, now you can start to compete. And that's one of the next best incentives is competition. So get your ratios going so you can compete. Now, see, if I joined your company and I just got started and you're so good you can get 9 out of 10, and I just started and I can only get 1 out of 10 because I just got there. If we have a contest for 30 days on sales, I will win. Somebody says, how would you do that? See, it's very simple. Since you're so good, you can get 9 out of 10, and the contest goes 30 days, while you're talking to 10 and getting 9, I will talk to 100 and get 10. So that when the month is over, you've got 9, I've got 10. I win. And that's one of my objectives, is to win. Now I have another objective. For you to lose. Because you learn a great deal by losing. And I wish to be your teacher. Competition, learning how to compete. What I do is make up for in numbers what I first lack in skill. Once you understand the law of averages, you can make up for in numbers what you first lack in skill. See, if I have to, I'll sleep 3 hours a day and work 21 or 20. I will, to win. Now, I can't do that forever. But if we've got something going, see, I'll just make up for in numbers. If I don't have the skill, I will make it up in numbers. Okay, now you can start to compete, getting 1 out of 10. A ratio tends to continue. Now, who will it continue for? Anyone who tries, if you try. Okay, now here's the next key on the law of averages for the ratios. The ratio can be increased. Isn't that unique? You talk to 10, get 1. Talk to 10 more, get 1. Talk to 10 more, you get another one. Talk to 10 more, you get 2. Why is that? Why would about the 4th time you talk to 10, you get 2 instead of 1? You're getting better. Key question. Who can get better? Anyone who tries. See, that's exciting. Now, could you stay and work hard enough to get this ratio up to 3 or 4 out of 10? Is that possible? For who? Anyone. Could you stay long enough to be a pro, get 6, 7 out of 10? Is that possible? For who? Anyone. What's exciting to know is that capacity meeting opportunity can yield the most incredible results. And you have all the capacity that's necessary, and you're surrounded by opportunity. I mean, you lack nothing from where you sit to create enterprise and wealth and fortune, and lifestyle, all the uniqueness you want. Being surrounded by opportunity and having unlimited capacity. I mean, what else would you ask for? Some people say, well, could you just bring it to me? Well, no, no. Okay. Now, there's a Bible story that teaches the law of averages. It's an interesting story called the parable of the sower. The parable of the sower, the story of the sower. And if you haven't read it for a while, it's an interesting, very interesting story to read. It's a great illustration of the law of averages, the parable of the sower. The sower in the ancient days was the guy that planted the crops. They called him the sower, right? They got the ground ready. I don't know just how they all got it all ready, right? But they got the ground ready. And this guy called the sower was the planter of the crops. And he would take a bag of seed, walk across the field, and he would, right, sow the seed and plant the crops. They called him the sower. Now, the story of the sower is a typical story of life and people and results and what you can expect, right? And then you let the obvious be your best teacher. Now, when you read the story of the sower, you'll come up with some interesting points. First, the sower was a wise man. And when you read the whole story, you'll come to the conclusion the sower was a wise man, which is a high advantage. Right? You don't want to send a dummy out to plant. Right? We will all starve come fall. Next point of the story was the sower had excellent seed. Excellent seed. Story says he had the best. He didn't settle for something cheap and second best. Third point of the story, he was highly ambitious. And when you read the whole story, you'll come to the conclusion this man was ambitious, which is an admirable quality. Ambition. And then he went to work. Guy says, oh, I knew there was a hitch in here somewhere. That's where it is probably, right? The guy goes to work. Now the story with the sower, with the excellent seed, highly ambitious, opportunity all around him, he has the capacity, he's got the seed, everything's ready, and he starts out to sow, to get some results. Now it's an interesting story about what happened to him. It's a typical story of life, but it's fascinating. Here's what it says. He starts out to sow the seed early in the morning, but the first part of the seed that he sows falls by the wayside, and the birds get it. He's sowing this good seed, highly ambitious man sowing this good seed, and the birds are grabbing it. He sows some more, and the birds grab that. He sows some more, and the birds grab that. Now, remember, this is a typical story of life and people. Now, is that fairly typical? See, I got to tell you as a leader, the birds are going to get some of the seed. You get a hold of John. Let's say you're in real estate, right? Somebody here's in real estate. You get a hold of John. John says, hey, I'm looking for a change. I need a new occupation change. And I've heard about real estate. You say, John, come on over Friday night. We're going to have this orientation class. And we'll show you how to do it. Might be the new life for you. Earn the money you want to earn. Get your life turned around. Who knows what'll happen? John says, sounds great to me. I'll be there on Friday night. Learn all about it. I'll probably be one of your best salesmen. Say, okay, see you Friday night. Now, come Friday night, 7:30, supposed to start. John's not there. Say, well, maybe the traffic's a little heavy. So we wait till 7:45. About 8 o'clock, we come to the conclusion. What? He's not going to show. Question. What's happened since this unique conversation that you had with John, and you dropped on him this great idea, you've got the explanation, helped change his life, he said he would agree to be there, and he's not there. What's probably happened between then and Friday night? The birds done got the boy. Got him. And who knows who the heck it might be, right? Maybe it's his brother-in-law, right? Says real estate. You're not going to mix up in that, are you? Talked him out of it. Or his plumber. Says, let me tell you about real estate. His plumber. Now, if you get the message back as to what happened, see, here's where you might get off track. There's a couple of things you can do when the birds are grabbing the seed. One is you can chase birds. See those dirty birds, and away you go after the birds. You say, wait till I get a hold of his brother-in-law. I'll straighten him out. Tear him a new page. What does he know about real estate? His plumber. Now, see, you're off trying to straighten things out, rather than accepting it as it is. The best study of life is how it is, not how you wish it to be, not how you wish to rearrange it, how to take advantage of how it is. Some people would rather get even than to get ahead. They get off course. See, if you're off chasing birds, you have left the field. You're not sowing anymore. Now your chances go down instead of up. There's some things you don't try to cure. There's some things you ignore. Here's what it said this wise sower did. It said he ignored the birds, and he kept on sowing. How clever. There's some things you just got to accept. That's the way it is. So he keeps on sowing. And here's the key. If you keep sowing, you can sow more than the birds can get. But the birds are part of life. And don't press me why I didn't arrange all this. I don't know. It's just the way it is. So he keeps on sowing. Now the story says this sower keeps on sowing. Now the seed falls on shallow ground, rocky ground where the soil is shallow. And it says the little plant starts to grow. This time, the birds didn't get it. But the first hot day, these little plants wither and die. Now that's kind of disappointing, isn't it? But see, that's bound to happen. This time you recruit John. John says, I'll be one of your best. He doesn't show up at the third meeting. You say, where's John? Say, I don't know. Somebody said, boo. And he... When I went to high school, there were 400 and some in the... No. Yes, there were 400 and some in the freshman class. And 150 in the graduating class. Is that unusual? See, there's always more freshmen than seniors. What's that called? The law of averages. Life takes its inevitable toll. Everybody should stay and finish, right? Maybe they should, but they don't. And you've got to learn to take that into stride. See, otherwise you'll be bent out of shape, you'll be tipped over, you'll be frustrated, you will misread life, and you won't know what's happening. You've just got to understand, sometimes the seed falls on shallow ground. And it didn't say what to do about the shallow ground. It just said that's the way it is. And we have a tendency to say, I thought sure John would last a month. But sure enough, it's happened. Now you're going to be disappointed. Let me put this in here. When this doesn't work out, just as you've planned, you're going to be disappointed. But here's what you must learn to do as a leader. Learn to discipline your disappointment. That's very important. Because sometimes it's easy to say, well, Pete, he's quit. John, he's quit. I guess I'll quit. And you just follow instead of lead. You're going to be disappointed, so be disappointed, but don't let it kill you. And don't let it stack up. Just understand, that's the way it is. I wish he would have stayed. But I wish him the best, wherever he's gone. He didn't last, but so what? That's life. Now then, here's what it said the wise sower did. He kept on sowing. How clever. Now it says the seed falls on thorny ground. Guy says, well, how much of this trouble can you have? Well, hang on, it's not the end of the story. It says, now the seed falls on thorny ground, and the little plant starts to grow, but then the thorns choke it to death. Now, is that fairly typical? See, the thorns are going to get some. The little Bible story called the thorns the cares of life. Little cares, little duties that cheat people out of big opportunities. And it happens every day. And I don't know what to do about it. I called John up and I said, John, where were you last night? We had a meeting. John says, well, I can't make every meeting. I say, why not? John says, well, I got a lot of other things I got to do. I say, what are they? You won't believe the list John gave me for last night. The backyard fence was sagging and the dogs are about to get out. You just can't let your dogs run loose. The screen door had come off the hinges. You just can't let things fall apart. You got to take time and keep things fixed up. Some extra trash had piled up in the garage. You just can't let mountains of trash take over. You got to take time and haul out this stuff. On the phone, I can hear the thorns getting him. People letting little things cheat them out of big opportunities. Some people have the incredible ability to major in minor things. I drive through this little community. John's out there mowing his lawn, cussing the weeds, his face is red, and he's about to explode. I stop and I get out of the car. I say, John, what are you doing? He says, what does it look like I'm doing? I'm mowing this lousy lawn. I say, John, there's all kinds of little neighborhood boys around here. Mow your lawn. He says, well, they want $5. I'll mow it myself. I'll mow it myself. Number one, there should be a law against cheating some little neighborhood boy out of $5. That should be a law. But see, the biggest cheat is letting little things cheat you out of major opportunities, called the thorns, the cares. But now what do you do about that? Well, see, I used to give classes on how not to let the thorns see, but that won't work. I mean, those classes won't help. Here's what it said this wise man did. He kept on sowing. How clever. He understood the law of averages. Keep sowing. Good people are not trained, they're found. You don't need much training, right, with good people. Find good people. Now, it says, finally, the seed falls on good ground. That's what it says, good. Somebody says, how do you find the good ground? Answer, keep looking. You'll recognize it when it comes by. You won't have to make something bad into something good. You'll recognize good when it comes by. Now, even the good ground, the story says, part of the good ground produced 30%, part of it produced 60%, and part of it produced 100%. Even the good ground. What's that called? The law of averages. The ratios. Where do they work? Everywhere. Who for? Everybody. Now what you must do is understand the ratios. as a leader so that you learn how to work with them and not against them. Now, see, I used to give classes here on how to do 100%, but see, that won't help. It's called frustration for the leader. Right? In the evening seminar, I say, right, the key to management is don't send your ducks to Eagle School, right? And this is part of it here, right? It's learning where, what to do, and how to find the right people. What to do and how to find the right people. See, that's major. So, you let people who want to produce 30. They make a contribution to the whole, and the 60 and the 100. Now, here's the key question. How do you find the 100%ers? Answer. You got to go through the birds. You got to go through the hot weather getting some. You got to go through the shallow, rocky soil. You got to talk to the 30 people, the 60 people, to find you the hundreds. Here's what we say. If you want a lot of seniors, you must load the freshman class. Okay? That's how you find seniors. You just load the freshman class. And there's a lot of things, you just watch the process. You don't try to change the process. You just share the story and watch what happens. Share the opportunity and watch. And you pick by watching what happens. You don't force, you don't make, and you don't change. You watch. So it's called act and share and watch and pick. Okay? Act and share and watch and pick. And what's smart is to pick 100%ers that become 100%ers. Right? You look like a hero. And you don't try to make 100%ers out of people who are not going to do very much. And see, that's not on them. Now, some people in one enterprise are going to do much better, in one enterprise than they are in another. But whatever enterprise you've got going, or whatever you're working with in the way of people, just understand the law of averages, and here's the key. Don't try to change it. Learn to work with it. Okay, is that helpful? The law of averages. I'm telling you, it'll save you a lot of heartache. It'll save you a lot of mistakes and a lot of errors and a lot of wondering and a lot of pondering, sleepless nights, agony. I mean, it just cures a whole lot of things once you understand the law of averages. Okay. Topic under leadership, how to build a successful team of people. Finding the right people is always a unique challenge. But that's where success comes from, the team effort. If you're going to put any kind of enterprise together that has a specific objective, being a national championship team or a business, an enterprise, a church, an organization, you've just got to find the right people. And this is how to build a successful team of people to accomplish a specific purpose. Now, if you don't have a specific purpose, then you can probably just use most anybody. But if you've got a purpose, whether it's a sales purpose or an office purpose or a real estate purpose or a church purpose or a organization purpose or a championship team, right? If you're going to build an organization of people for a specific accomplishment, then you've got to have the right people. And let me just give you a little checklist we use around the world, trying to find the right people. First, there's a checklist of 3 things. First, you check interest. And checking a person's interest, there's probably several ways you can do it. One is, I guess, by resume. What someone has done in the past may indicate their interest for the future. But the best way really to check interest is face-to-face. You just got to look at somebody and have them look back and get into conversation and talk about the enterprise and talk about, the job description, what it's all about, to find a person's true interest. Now, in the role of leadership, you do have to be cautioned that some people are going to try to fake you out. So you got to get ready for that. But if you do it often enough, person to person, face to face, you can get good at really checking a person's true interest. I guess Jesus, master teacher, was the best at it. The story says one day a group came to him and said, Master, we wish to be your disciples. Jesus said, gentlemen, you have put your story on the wrong person. Because unfortunately, I can read your heart. They said, oh. See, they weren't wanting to be disciples. They had all kinds of trickery in mind, but that was the upfront show of interest. We wish to be your disciples. But see, he read them just right off the bat. Now, you might not get that good at it, right, to where you can read hearts. But I'll tell you what, though, if you will practice, if you'll be sensitive, if you'll look, if you won't miss anything, you can get very good at reading true interest, to really check that against what you hear in the conversation that's going on. Now, of course, here's where the woman comes in with her extra special gifts, right? See, if a man's having problems recruiting someone or talking to another man and he's not quite sure, then he just lets a woman sit in on the conversation and says, you just sit and listen while I talk to this gentleman, and then you'd give me your feelings. And sure enough, she'll tell you. When it's over, you just consult with her. Say, how'd you feel? She'll say, hey, I felt great. Or she will say, I don't think so, right? Because the women have this uncanny sense of danger or something doesn't ring a bell. But, men can get good at it. But anybody who practices this art of really trying to judge true interest can get better and better at it. Now, no matter how good you get, you're still going to make some errors in judgment. Jesus said, I'll take you. And that was Judas. So you are going to make, some errors. Anyway. So that helps me, right, to know when I make some errors. Now, so first of all, you check interest. Here's the second thing you check is response. A person might be interested in the pay, or they might be interested in, the opportunity or the future, but you also have to check response. How they respond to the job description. Are they excited and eager about whatever it takes to do it to get the job done? If somebody says, you have to get there how early? You have to stay how late? Go home in the middle of the traffic? The breaks only, what was that again? 10 minutes? You just have to say next, right? You just don't have the right person because the response is wrong. Then third thing you check to build a successful team of people is results. And I don't know any substitute for that. Finally, you must judge by results. Results must soon match quality. You might have a nice person, a good person, but unless you start getting early results, then you just don't have the right person. And it isn't that the wrong person may be a bad person. It's just that they are not the right person for the job, for the skill, for whatever needs to be accomplished. The great coach John Wooden, I'm sure, said to the supposedly skilled young basketball player, he says, sir, can you hit it from the corner? I got to have me a corner man who can hit it from the corner. And, how are we going to know if you can hit it from the corner? right? John says, well, I'll just stand here, and you just fire away, and I'll count. That's how you finally tell. Just launch a few, and I'll just keep score here, because I got to have somebody who can in the corner. Now, finally, you got to judge by results. And the early part of activity doesn't need to be the final results. The results can be, did you make the calls? This job calls for at least 10 calls a day. So the next morning, we get the little sheet out, and I say, John, how many calls on that 10 did you make yesterday? John says, well, say, the well won't even fit in the box. And sure enough, I've got this indication John's going to come up with a story, and the story for sure won't fit in the box. I say, John, the box is too small for the story. All I need is a number. 1, 3, 5, 8, 7. Just give me the number and I'll put it in the box. See, finally, you must judge by results. Because that's the name of the game, right? Results. Now, we all need to give people time for results, but finally, you must judge by results. We don't judge by stories. We just let the numbers speak for themselves. We let the activity that we've set up. Now, make sure when you recruit somebody, put somebody on, and you're developing an organization, whatever you're doing, make sure everybody understands up front